Hello, English learners, and welcome. I'm your host, Paul. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you. Excited to chat about English learning today.
Let's face it, when you're learning English, it can sometimes feel, well, like you're walking on eggshells, right? Every time you open your mouth, there's that little worry. Am I going to get it wrong?
Yeah, that fear is real for so many learners.
But what if we flip that idea,
Yeah.
like totally on its head?
Okay.
What if those very mistakes you're trying so hard to avoid are actually your secret weapon?
How you can stop overthinking and start speaking more naturally.
Let's do it. So the sources immediately home in on why so many learners get caught in this loop of overthinking before they speak. It's incredibly common, apparently.
Very common.
But what are the primary drivers?
Well, one of the most powerful forces the material highlights is fear. Specifically, the fear of making mistakes.
Yes.
It's that persistent little voice, asking, is this grammatically correct? Did I pronounce that right?
What if they don't understand me? What if I sound foolish?
Exactly that. And the paradox the sources point out is that this fear often completely prevents the very thing you need to do to get better,
Which is speaking.
which is speaking, like learning any skill, riding a bike, playing an instrument, even learning your first language.
Right.
You learn by doing, by trying, and yes, by messing up. Think about babies learning their first language.
Oh, yeah.
They babble, they guess, they get things hilariously wrong, and that's exactly how they figure it out.
That makes total sense.
Yeah.
So fear is number one. What else?
The sources also heavily emphasize the habit of translation.
Okay.
And this isn't just translating a tricky word here and there. It's trying to construct sentences in your head by translating directly from your native language, word for word or structure for structure.
And the material shows this is just a major bottleneck.
A huge one. Not only does it slow you down dramatically, but direct translation. Well, it rarely works smoothly because English structures and idioms are often completely different.
So you end up trying to force a sentence that just doesn't sound natural.
Or you just get stuck because there's no direct equivalent word or phrase.
Okay, so fear, translation. What's the third main reason?
Another significant barrier identified is perfectionism.
Hmm.
This idea that you need to have every single grammar rule memorized and applied perfectly before you can speak comfortably.
Which is impossible.
Pretty much, but the sources are really clear. Native speakers don't speak perfectly. We constantly use contractions like gonna and wanna. We sometimes start a sentence one way and finish it another.
We stumble, we use fillers.
All the time.
Hmm.
Fluency, the sources argue, is about the flow of ideas and being understood, not about grammatical flawlessness.
Right, not sounding like a textbook.
Exactly. The material uses this really compelling analogy.
Right.
It says focusing intensely on grammar rules while you're trying to speak is like trying to read the driving manual while you're driving a car.
Oh, wow. Okay.
You just can't do both effectively or safely at the same time. The focus needs to be on the act of driving the speaking itself.
That analogy really sticks. It highlights that trying to be perfect in the moment of speaking is actually counterproductive.
Totally.
So if you recognize this pattern in yourself, fear the translation, the perfectionism, know that the sources say it's a common hurdle,
Very common.
but absolutely surmountable. There are concrete ways to train your brain to bypass this. And that brings us to the often discussed idea of thinking in English. What do the sources say that actually means?
Right, because that phrase can sound a bit vague, can it? Like some kind of linguistic superpower you magically acquire overnight.
Yeah, like you just flip a switch.
But the sources really demystify it. Thinking in English, they say, isn't about suddenly having perfect, complex internal monologues in English. It's much more about significantly reducing or even eliminating that internal translation step we just talked about.
Okay, so it's less about sounding sophisticated in your head and more about building a direct pathway. So instead of native language, translate English, speak.
It becomes just concept idea English to speak, much more direct.
Got it. Going straight from the thought or the thing you see to the English word or phrase.
Precisely. And the sources detail the very real benefits. Speaking faster, feeling less hesitant, more confident.
That sense of words just coming to you more easily, maybe.
Yeah, exactly. And the material gives permission to start small, which I think is great.
Yeah, that's encouraging.
You don't need to jump into complex internal debates in English right away. It suggests starting by simply naming your world.
Naming your world, how does that work?
Look at objects around you right now, wherever you are listening, and just think the English word. See a chair. Think chair.
Not the word in your first language, then chair. Just straight to chair.
Just chair. Or describing simple actions internally as you do them. I'm closing the door. I'm opening my laptop.
Ah, okay, so you're building an English reflex.
That's a great way to put it. Training your brain to associate the concept directly with the English word or simple phrase without that detour through your native language.
And the sources offer some really practical daily tips to cultivate this.
Yeah.
One simple one they mention.
Change the language settings.
Exactly. Change the language on your phone, your apps, your computer to English. Instant, low-stakes immersion right there in your pocket.
That's a good one. Another great tip from the material: embrace your English inner voice.
Our internal chatter.
Yeah, we all have it. Try to consciously shift some of it into English. Even simple things like, okay, where did I put my keys? Or, what should I eat for lunch?
Just narrating little bits of your day to yourself in English.
And this feels related to another technique, shadowing, which we'll get to later.
Okay.
But the sources also suggest watching short English videos and repeating sections out loud.
Not just listening, but actively repeating the lines.
Yes, focusing on the rhythm, the intonation, the flow, almost like mimicking the speaker. It trains your mouth and ears together directly in English.
So it's physical as well as mental.
Definitely. And finally, they suggest keeping an English-only notebook or journal.
Ah, writing practice.
Right. Write down shopping lists, thoughts about your day, summaries of things you watched. It reinforces using English for expressing ideas directly away from the pressure of a live conversation.
So thinking in English, as the sources define it, is really a practice, isn't it? Not a switch you flip.
Absolutely. It's about consciously creating these small English-only spaces in your mind and your environment throughout the day.
Gradually training your brain to bypass that default translation route.
And making speaking feel more intuitive over time.
Okay, that makes sense. It's about building habits.
Exactly. And building on that foundation, the sources lay out some really specific techniques designed to help you speak English more naturally.
The actionable stuff.
Yeah, specifically targeting that overthinking reflex we've been talking about.
Let's get into those methods the sources recommend. These are ways to help you speak without freezing, translating, or getting bogged down in perfect grammar.
Okay, the first technique the material highlights is called rapid speaking, or sometimes free speaking.
Rapid speaking sounds intense.
It's deceptively simple, but actually quite powerful. Here's the core idea from the sources. Set a timer maybe just for 1 minute to start.
Okay, 1 minute.
Pick any topic, literally anything, your morning routine, what you see outside, a movie you like, and just talk. Nonstop.
Nonstop. What's the key?
The absolute key is do not stop to correct mistakes or search for the perfect word. Just keep the English flowing, even if you stumble or repeat yourself. Fluency over accuracy is the goal here.
Just keep talking no matter what.
Exactly. This technique, according to the sources, quickly builds confidence by forcing you to prioritize getting the words out. It trains your brain to keep going. You can do it daily.
Should we try like a super quick demo?
Yeah.
Maybe 15 seconds?
Sure. You go first. Talk about your breakfast this morning. Go.
Okay. Breakfast. This morning I had toast. Just toast with butter. And coffee. Black coffee. I usually have something simple because I'm rushing. Done.
Perfect. It doesn't need to be profound or grammatically spotless. The goal is simply maintaining that output, pushing through the hesitation.
Okay, I can see how that would help. What's the next technique the sources recommend?
Next up, chunk learning. This is about shifting your focus from learning individual words to learning and using common phrases or chunks of language.
Chunks, like groups of words that often go together.
Precisely. So instead of just learning the word idea and then trying to build sentences around it using grammar rule.
Now you learn phrases like, that's a good idea, or I have no idea.
Exactly. Or what's the big idea? Where did you get that idea? These ready-made phrases. The sources explain that this is how native speakers often acquire language and retrieve it quickly.
It's like having pre-assembled Lego blocks, right?
That's the perfect analogy used in the material. Instead of fumbling with individual bricks every time, you grab a ready-made unit like, how are you doing? Or, I'm looking forward to it.
It dramatically reduces the mental load, the thinking time, during a conversation.
It really does. Okay, for boosting spontaneity, the material suggests something like improv games?
Improv, like comedy improv.
Sort of, especially with a partner, but you can do it alone too. One person gives a random word, and the other has to speak about it for, say, 30 seconds without any preparation.
Okay, let's test this out based on the source's idea. Give me a word, any word.
All right. How about umbrella?
Umbrella, okay.
Mm-hmm.
An umbrella is useful when it's raining, obviously. I always seem to lose mine. I think I have about 3 broken umbrellas somewhere in my apartment. They get caught in the wind.
Yeah.
Yeah. useful but annoying.
Nice. See, that requires your brain to react instantly in English without planning. It's challenging, but it trains that spontaneous connection between a concept and speaking.
I felt my brain scrambling there. Okay,
Sure.
what else?
And a technique the sources really champion, one that feels a bit strange at first but is incredibly effective, is shadowing.
Shadowing. Okay, explain that one.
This involves listening to a native speaker, maybe from a podcast like this one, a TV show, a YouTube clip, and speaking along at the exact same time.
At the same time, like an echo.
Exactly like an echo. You're mimicking their rhythm, their pronunciation, their intonation, even their emotion as closely as you can simultaneously.
Wow, that sounds hard.
It can be tricky at first, but the material suggests this technique helps train your mouth, your tongue, and your ear muscles to feel the patterns and sounds of English directly.
So you're bypassing the analytical brain again.
Largely, yes. You're focusing on the physical and auditory performance of the language. It's about internalizing the music of English, not just the words and grammar.
Interesting. Okay, one more technique.
One more practical one mentioned in the sources is using images or objects as prompts.
How does that work?
Simply look at a picture, maybe on your phone or in a magazine, or pick up a physical object near you and just describe it out loud. Don't write anything down first, just speak.
So if I picked up my mug,
You'd say, okay, this is my mug. It's blue. It has a handle. I drink coffee out of it every morning. It feels warm, just whatever comes to mind.
and this helps because
It encourages your brain to connect the visual or tactile input directly to English output. You're not translating from your native language description. You're practicing expressing what you see or hold using the English words available to you.
another way to build that direct route.
Exactly, strengthening those English-only pathways.
These are great practical techniques. But fundamentally, underpinning all of them, the sources heavily emphasize the importance of mindset, don't they?
Oh, hugely. Mindset is critical. And one of the most important shifts identified is letting go of the need to be perfect.
We keep coming back to that perfectionism thing.
Because it's such a blocker. The material is clear. Pauses are normal. Using filler words like or is normal. Making grammar mistakes is completely normal and part of the learning process.
Fluency isn't about sounding like a perfectly programmed robot.
Not at all. It's about effective communication and flow. Think of it like building any muscle. It gets stronger with use, with practice.
Not with perfect form from day one.
Exactly. The sources really push this. You have to use the language, speak more, and consciously try to think less about errors, find ways to enjoy the process, even the messy parts.
And speaking of putting it into practice right away,
Yes, the sources suggest a specific, simple activity you can do starting right now. It's kind of a mini challenge.
okay, this is where you, the listener, get to apply some of these ideas based on the source's recommendations. You're going to speak out loud for 30 seconds.
Just 30 seconds. Wherever you are, if you can, take a moment. The rule is speak nonstop for 30 seconds.
Nonstop. And remember the key point from rapid speaking.
Do not stop or pause to correct yourself. Just keep talking. If you get stuck, repeat a word, say, or just make something up. The goal is continuous English output.
Okay, you ready? Based on the source material, topic number 1 for your 30-second challenge is, what do you usually do in the morning? All right, 30 seconds. Go. Pause for 25 seconds. Keep going. Just let the words come out. Don't judge it. Almost there.
Yeah.
And stop.
Nice work.
Great job. Seriously, if you did that out loud, you just gave your English-speaking muscles a real workout.
Okay, let's try another one straight away. Topic number 2 from the sources. Talk about your favorite food. Why do you love it? What's it like? 30 seconds again. Ready, set, go.
Pause for 25 seconds. Don't stop. Describe it. Explain why. Just keep the English flowing. Keep going. Excellent. And stop.
Fantastic. The sources really stress that doing this kind of brief, low-pressure speaking exercise daily is incredibly effective.
Daily. Even just for a minute or two.
Yes, it builds that comfort and confidence quickly. You don't need a formal setting. You just need a moment and the willingness to open your mouth and let the English come out.
And that consistency, the sources argue, is where the real change happens.
Right, absolutely. Even just a few weeks of consistent practice with these techniques, the rapid speaking, the chunking, the shadowing, these mini challenges can lead to noticeable changes in how comfortable and quick you feel when speaking.
Progress might feel slow sometimes, though.
It might, but the sources remind us it's happening internally as you build these new neural pathways. You have to be patient with yourself, be active in your practice.
And trust that your brain is making the connections.
Exactly. Trust the process.
Okay. Drawing from the sources, let's quickly tackle a few common misunderstandings or myths that tend to hold learners back.
Good idea. Myth-busting time.
All right, first myth. I have to speak with perfect grammar to be fluent. True or false?
Absolutely false. And the sources are very, very clear on this. Fluency is about communicating your ideas effectively, being understood, having that flow.
Not about flawless grammar.
Not at all. Native speakers don't achieve that, so why should you feel pressured to? It's an unrealistic standard.
Okay, myth number 2. I need to translate and plan the entire sentence perfectly in my head before I dare to speak.
Again, false. And the sources explain why this is so detrimental. It's that translation bottleneck we talked about. It slows you right down.
Real conversation is more spontaneous.
It's spontaneous, it's often messy. You have to trust that your brain has the resources, the words, the chunks you've learned, and just start speaking. Let the sentence evolve as you go.
Trust the process again.
Myth number 3. If I make a mistake, people will judge me or laugh at me.
Ah, that fear again.
It's a powerful one. But the sources counter it with the reality that, honestly, most people are incredibly supportive of language learners. They admire the effort.
I know it's hard.
Exactly. And if someone does react negatively, well, the sources suggest that says far more about their character than about your brave attempt to communicate in another language.
Right. Mistakes are proof. You're trying, you're stretching, you're actually learning. You should almost be proud of them.
You absolutely should. They show you're in the arena doing the work.
Okay, and the classic question. How long does it take? How long until I can speak without thinking so much?
Yeah, everyone wants a timeline. The sources indicate, predictably, there's no single answer. It depends on so many factors.
Your starting level, how much you practice.
Exactly. But the key takeaway is that consistent, focused practice using techniques like the ones we discussed can accelerate the process significantly. You might feel a noticeable shift in just a few weeks.
Even if you don't suddenly sound like a native speaker overnight.
Right. It's about feeling that internal change, less hesitation, quicker recall. Progress is happening constantly beneath the surface, even when it's not obvious.
So trust that internal progress.
Keep showing up for the practice. Believe it's working.
All right, friends, we've covered some significant ground in this deep dive into the sources on speaking English without so much overthinking.
Yeah, we really unpacked a lot. We looked at those core reasons for hesitation, the fear of mistakes, that tricky translation habit, and the trap of perfectionism.
And how the sources frame these not as personal failings, but as common hurdles to actively overcome.
Then we explored what thinking in English really means according to the material. Not some magic trick, but building those direct English-to-concept pathways.
Through simple, consistent daily practices like naming your world, using your inner voice, changing your tech language.
And we gave you those practical, actionable techniques recommended by the material, the rapid speaking, to build flow.
Chunk learning for those ready-made language units.
Improv games for spontaneity, shadowing for rhythm and feel, and using images or objects as prompts for direct English output.
We also hit those persistent myths, reinforcing that fluency isn't perfection and that mistakes are not just allowed, they're essential steps on the path.
Definitely. And if there's one core message that really echoes through all the sources we examined today, it's this. Fluency is primarily built through doing.
Through speaking.
Through speaking, not through endless internal analysis or waiting until you feel ready.
The more you actively open your mouth and speak English, the more automatic, comfortable, and natural it will become over time.
So keep putting yourself out there. Speak out loud every day if you can, even when it feels awkward or imperfect.
Make those mistakes.
Okay.
Learn from them, but don't let them stop you. They are your proof of progress.
They really are.
So here's maybe a final thought, drawing from the spirit of these sources for you to carry forward.
Okay.
Every single time you open your mouth and choose to speak English, whether it's asking for directions, joining a conversation, or just doing one of those 30-second challenges, regardless of the stumbles or imperfections, you are directly building the fluency you desire. The very act of speaking is the path to speaking more freely.
That's powerful. The journey is the speaking itself.
Exactly. You already have the knowledge inside you to start. What you need now, maybe, is just the courage to open your mouth and practice using it.
Trust yourself, trust the process, and take the plunge. You can do this.